All right, everybody, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you. Yes, it was a little more than a week ago, but we are going to look back at the NFL draft. There was a rookie minicamp that did open up around the league, and of course, the Jets were one of those teams that did host their rookies for a couple of days this weekend. So a lot of people in the press got a chance to look at Zach Wilson in his first couple of days in a Jets uniform. So let's look back at the draft. Let's talk about how the Jets did during this draft, how the Giants did during this draft. And let's talk about this Aaron Rodgers situation. Now, we got a very special guest joining me to talk about this. Pete Collesano of the Bump and Run podcast, which you can hear on Spotify. He does the podcast every Thursday on Spotify with his broadcast partner, Scott Bracey. They talk about the NFL. They talk about a whole bunch of different topics in sports, and they had a lot of focus this year on the draft. So I wanted to get his thoughts about what had taken place just last week. So let's sit down. Let's talk about it. Pete, welcome aboard to the program.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So, Pete, before we go into talking about the draft, just tell us a little bit more about Bump and Run, how you started it. I know you've had it up for several months, and it's been like the go-to place for draft talk.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it. It all started because Scotty and I were doing a once-a-week phone call, just talking sports. And, I walked in the house after one of them, and my wife was like, "What are you smiling about?" And I said it was just nice to really get into the weeds and in deep about different sports topics with him. And she said, maybe you guys should, record it and start a podcast. And that's what we did. We've had some amazing feedback. We're really thrilled with, the feedback that we're getting from everybody. So, and like we've said, it's a conversation. It's the same thing it's been from just us being on the phone. So that's never going to change with us. And we have a good time. There's lots of sports talk and there's a little bit of nonsense, but it's always a lot of fun. So we enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a great show, and it's not just limited to the football, but I hear you guys do a lot of Yankee stuff. You do all this stuff like golf, so
we get all over the place. Yeah,
it's really good. So let's go right into this with the Jets as they had their draft. They took Zach Wilson. Really, no surprise. We all kind of expected him to go that route. Of course, the big thing that people are going to talk about is, did he play enough? Did he play against really great, solid competition in college? Is he someone that's going to have the, I guess, wherewithal, because he's such a small frame, to handle the hits that he's going to take in NFL? Those are some of the concerns that people have been bringing up. What do you think about the pick? I mean, obviously, I know a lot of Jet fans are excited to have another quarterback in town. Yeah. I've been on the bandwagon of, we've been doing this like for 3 million years, 4 years enough already. What are your thoughts about Zach Wilson?
Listen, I totally understand the skepticism, and it's there for me too. I am very excited about Zach Wilson. I do not have the same concerns that others do about his size. He's no different in size than Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson. He's exactly the same. He's bigger than Kyler Murray. He's bottom heavy. He's got thick legs, which to me actually, it's a little more protective, we'll say. And oh, by the way, he's 2 or 3 inches shorter, but he's the same exact weight as Trevor Lawrence. So if anybody's concerned about Zach Wilson's weight, as being, only 214 pounds, Trevor Lawrence, 2 inches taller, he's a twig. He's the same exact weight. So, again, Aaron Rodgers, you can go down the list. Lamar Jackson's about the same height and size and weight. That doesn't concern me. The competition thing doesn't concern me too much because the things that I liked, that I saw. So I played college football. I was a quarterback in college. I coached high school football. I was a head high school football coach, and offense was my thing. I've seen a lot of quarterbacking, and the things that I like have nothing to do with the coach, with the playing level. What I saw is a guy throwing into very small windows, able to drive the ball downfield, not just chuck it downfield, but drive it downfield with a lot of velocity. He's not throwing to elite receivers. So when we say he's not playing against elite competition, well, he's also not playing with elite receivers, and those guys are not breaking wide open like you'll see at Ohio State or Alabama or Clemson. So I see him making really professional throws. And then I'm even more excited because some of the things that he's really good at, which is like throwing on the run, throwing off platform, these are not only a part of what he'll be doing in the NFL, but it's expected in that Shanahan LaFleur offense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's just a perfect fit for what they're going to do. I'm the first one to acknowledge, there's no guarantee.
Right.
And we can talk about the overall draft for the Jets, and he's the least, well, maybe not the least, but of the top, say, 4 picks, he's the least of the guarantees that are there.
I agree.
But I'm really excited. I think he's smart. I think he's really hungry to do well, and I am excited for not just him, but like what's around him, coaching staff, that kind of stuff. I feel much better than I did, say a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he handles the pressure of New York because, you get a kid in here. We've seen this with a lot of kids that come into town, whether it be Mark Sanchez, whether it be even Sam Darnold to an extent. If we want to go to Eli Manning, who handled the media as well as anybody possibly could, I mean, this is a town that has a tendency to eat people alive. And, we're already seeing a little bit of, I'm sure he's getting some culture shock already from being in New York and the kind of questions he's receiving. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to handle it. This is going to be, and I know that, when you have a draft like the Jets have had, and you've had the all season like the Jets have had, a lot of fans are going to want to expect, oh man, we're going to win 8, 9, 10
Oh,
games.
yeah.
I'm thinking
slow down
just a little bit. I'm thinking 4 or 5 wins. This is kind of a stepping stone kind of year. I would hope for him, and even for the Jets as a matter, that the fans don't get on him too quickly because we know how fans can turn very on the switch. So we'll see how he does handling the pressure here in New York, how he develops. I think his chemistry with his teammates is going to be very, very big as well.
So Vegas has the Jets set at 6.5 as a total wins for next year, and I actually think 7 for a Jets fan to hope for 7. I think that's fair. Mm-hmm. There's an extra game, so that would be 7-10. That's a losing record. But I think what you're more looking to see is, did Zach Wilson progress throughout the year? Are they on the upswing at the end of the season as opposed to how they started the season? So I'm less concerned. Yes, you're 100% right. Jets fans need to be patient. There's been some exciting and interesting moves in the offseason. The draft is great. These are all rookies.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some of the other ones, I'm sure, but these are rookies. Like, slow down.
Yeah.
And I think 7 wins is like, if they go 7-10, I'm excited, especially if more of those wins are near the end of the season. And anything more than that, Jets fans, that's gravy. You should be utterly thrilled.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one thing that makes this a little more exciting for fans is the fact that the players they are putting around him. And, unlike what they did with Sam Darnold, and, I felt the Jets really, in a lot of ways screwed Sam Darnold in a lot of ways because they never really put a lot of players around him. I know they got Mekhi Becton last year, but they never really built around him, like whether it was McCagnon or even when Douglas got here initially. And now they're going to try to do it right. I love the fact they had Michael Carter dropped him all the way to the 4th round. That kid had a 2nd round grade, and he had 1,200 yards rushing, and he was the number 2 back in Carolina.
He averaged 8 yards per carry.
God, he was. I mean,
that's just, he's electric. And yeah, I agree. I actually think they got 2 steals.
Yeah.
I think he was a steal to get him in the 4th round, and I absolutely love Elijah Moore in the second round. I don't think they intended to get him in the 2nd round. I'm sure if you asked them before the draft, you think you'll get Elijah Moore in the 2nd round. I don't think that was what they were looking for. I think sometimes, and this is why I'm even more excited. I'll be honest with you. I'm more excited because of Joe Douglas right now, because I haven't seen the new product yet. Okay. But I do see a direction and a theme and kind of a culture of what's being built here. And that makes me excited. And when I see them, I know they wanted to go in a certain direction, but then every once in a while, a guy or that guy falls to you in the draft. And it's like, you could take a guy that maybe isn't filling a need, but he's super special, or you can go and fill a need, but they take that special player. I really do think Elijah Moore is that kind of special player. Averaged 149 yards per game last year receiving. Like, that's bonkers. I think that led the nation. And, I think he's just a really special player that they can use in a Tyreek Hill kind of mode. When's the last time you saw something like that on a Jets?
Maybe Santana Moss. I mean,
kind of like that, right? But they didn't even use him in that form, so it's exciting to me.
Not only that, but he had a 4.35 40 time, and
my God.
When the pick came in initially, I thought to myself, maybe go offensive line because you had the kid from Oklahoma State out there. I'm thinking maybe you go with him, finish the offensive line, and then they get him, and I thought that's interesting. And then the more I think about it, I get more excited about it because of the speed factor, the playmaking factor, and also people compare him to Steve Smith. Now I'm not saying it's going to turn into Steve Smith and trash talk and all that stuff, but just the ability to be that kind of special player, it's an exciting move.
He's explosive. He's shifty. I agree with you. I was thinking Tevin Jenkins would have been great. We're strengthening this line. We're going to put one more really good-looking player. But I just think sometimes that guy drops to you in a spot, and you're like, I'm going to kick myself if I pass on this kid. And I like that. That shows to me like we have a direction that we're going, but we also have flexibility if things change. And I don't know. I just like that.
Yeah. The other pick that I wanted to just quickly discuss, Jamie and Sherwood. I mean, I'm listening to because nice job by the Jets because they actually take video of their draft room. And Joe Douglas is on the phone with him, and he's like, I need a junkyard dog. Are you that guy? And he's like,
Yep.
Yes, sir, I am that junkyard dog. This guy can play safety, he can play weak side linebacker. He can do all kinds of things. And when you are in Robert Saleh's defense, where they like to interchange a lot of parts, that's a perfect fit. I know he's like, what was he, a late fourth round pick, something like that?
He might have been a fifth, yeah, because I think they had 2 fifths.
Yeah.
So what I saw with their first through fourth round picks are just. That's what this draft will be judged on. It'll be judged mainly on Zach Wilson, but those first 4 picks, you're probably expecting all of them to be starters. And then when I saw in rounds 5 through 7, they got athletes with speed and aggression. Like you're taking a safety and we're going to make him a linebacker. We're taking a corner and we're going to make him a safety. And it's like, you take 3 guys that we don't know exactly what we're going to do, but they're hyper aggressive and fast. And if one of them hits, it's a home run. And frankly, I kind of like that too. Because the other guys, if they end up being special teams players or backup players, but if one of those guys hits, man, it's a steal number 1 and it's a home run because they're all hit machines and physical and you like that. So.
Absolutely. Let's move over to the Giants because they had they were just wheeling and dealing. At least David Gettleman was with the picks. Trades out of 11 after the Eagles and Cowboys did basically traded picks to steal Devontae Smith away from the Giants, potentially being there at the Giants at 11. Yeah. They traded with the Bears to get Justin Fields. I think that's going to be a scary pick with Fields going to Chicago. I think he's going to be very good down in there in Chicago. But the Giants go ahead and they take Kadarius Toney, and I thought that was a curious pick because I thought, considering how many times that Daniel Jones has been on his back. He was sacked 45 times last year, which was like 10% of his dropbacks he was on the ground. So, you go out there, maybe you go out after Christian Darrisaw, maybe you go try to go after to try to solidify this offensive line somehow. But they stay with receiver and they get Toney, who I think is certainly not as good as Elijah Moore.
I agree.
Not as good as big a playmaker as him, but still an interesting pick nonetheless for the Giants.
Yeah, he's a guy I would love to have on my team. I think he's a pretty explosive player, really nice receiver. Kyle Trask loved throwing to him. I agree with you though here. I think it's a bit of a curious pick. I love the move.
Yeah.
Trading back, it was the right thing to do. And what's interesting about that is Gettleman never does that. He's not a deal maker during the draft, historically. So for them to do that, I was like, that's kind of smart. But I'm with you. Did you really need more weapons? Is that what you got? Saquon Barkley coming back. You just signed Kenny Galladay to $1 bazillion. Did you need another weapon or did you need? Listen, the Giants' season will be predicated on how well Daniel Jones does, and they're if you look at that team, they're relatively complete. Every team has needs. Even Tampa Bay has needs. But they showed out to be a pretty darn good defense, especially in the second half of the year last year. You got Galladay coming in. You got weapons all over the place. You got Saquon Barkley coming back. The one weakness was, Daniel Jones was off and running for his life. Now, I agree with you. I would have done that. I'm not going to cry about it because I'm not a Giants fan. But I'm sure Daniel Jones is a little like, I mean, it's nice to have another guy to throw to, but I need to be upright. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you as a former quarterback, a half a second, it sounds like nothing. It's an eternity. The difference between getting 3.5 and 4 seconds, it's a really long time when you're making these snap judgments, and it takes a quarter of a second to release the ball. So, I'm with you. That was a bit curious. I like the move, but maybe not. There was a number of options that they could have got. Tevin Jenkins was another one that they could have gone with, or maybe they could have moved back again if they still didn't feel comfortable. But lineman to me, was the way to go, and they chose not to.
They do go out there. They get the linebacker Azeez Ojulari, who really special pick. I mean, they needed a pass. They always talk about edge rusher. They haven't had one in a long time, and they get one on this kid another guy who had a first round grade but dropped because he had I think it was arthritis in his knee from high school injury. But he's a special pass rusher, and they got him. That's a good pick for them.
So when we did our bump and run show the week before the draft, we did a mock draft, and we only did the first 18 picks, whoever didn't make the playoffs. We did those teams. Mm-hmm. And then we said, okay, what are some other guys we want to keep an eye on? And Ojulari was one of those guys because I said, there's something about this dude. And if you watch, you can go on YouTube and check out a highlight reel. He's a hard leaner. And what I mean by that is he's really cutting the corner really hard on offensive tackles, and he's fast, super aggressive. I hate making comparisons, especially when you're the Giants. You can't even mention the name Lawrence Taylor. It's not fair to the player, and it's absurd. But the Giants historically, they get after the quarterback, and in recent years they haven't done that as well. Whether it was Strahan or Lawrence Taylor, you can go there. There's been a number of guys that can get after it. Mm-hmm. I like this kid. He's a real speed rusher, endless motor. He just is constantly getting after it. You also see him a lot of times. He's able to a play that's going away. He's really great at running that play down from the backside, which that to me says motor. That's a guy he's go. He's just a go guy. And I like that pick. I do like.
Cap, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it was, when the word came out that he wanted to get traded, it reminded me of it took me back to the 2007 World Series when the Red Sox are taking on the Rockies, and then all of a sudden you see Ken Rosenthal go to Mike and say, Alex Rodriguez wants to out of his Yankee contract. It's it's just the most random thing possible. It just comes out of nowhere. It's what?
Yeah. He really stuck it to the Packers too by having his agent, I guess, leak it out or announce it on draft night. What a move to make, right? Exactly. Really stick it to him.
Let me just throw a monkey wrench into this whole process. Boom, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, even Deshaun Watson, he pretty much made it known right after the season that he wanted out. Then he didn't wait. He didn't wait 5 months, 6 months to say, I got to get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore, to make it public. So yeah, that was kind of not the nicest thing to do on draft night. And what I don't forget about the team, forget about how that makes Green Bay look. I don't like that it takes away from the players being drafted that night.
I agree.
Anybody that Green Bay would have drafted or was thinking about drafting, or anybody from any other team, I don't like that. And this is one of the reasons I got issues with Aaron Rodgers. Great player, but I got issues with him.
It basically screwed up San Francisco's draft because they went all the way basically to the 11th hour in the last second, not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
They didn't pick Trey Lance. They didn't tell anybody that they were going to take Trey Lance until the card was in. So Right. We're thinking, we're going to get Rodgers, or we're going to go with Mac Jones, we're going to go with Trey Lance. Screw it, we'll take Trey Lance.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers kind of stuck himself on that one. If he would have said that maybe a week earlier, mm-hmm. San Fran would have been in a better position to make put a better package together. Or negotiations takes time. You can't just say 2 hours. Let's get this done. I don't know that Green Bay would want to do that anyway. I'm thinking I would never do that. Him and Deshaun Watson are very different because Deshaun Watson's still a kid. He's 24 years old. If he sits out a year, who cares? Aaron Rodgers sits out a year. The next time he plays, he's 39.
Hmm.
So, his leverage isn't exactly what some people like to think it is.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see because I think it's pretty obvious to me now. He's throwing the general manager under the bus. It's
Yeah.
pretty obvious to me that he's not going to play with Green Bay this ever again, for that matter. I just wonder where they're going to trade him. There's talk that the Broncos, obviously the 49ers, were in the mix, and there's talk that maybe they tampered with Rodgers, and Minnesota did the same thing with Favre many years ago, and he still ended up going to Minnesota eventually. I'm very curious where he ends up. I would think Denver, but I also wouldn't discount the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that's a really intriguing fit because you go with Gruden, and it's a very similar offense to what they run in Green Bay for all those years. Gruden being a Green Bay guy from many years back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a really intriguing spot and basically just a swap. You basically swap Carr for Rodgers and some draft picks, and you move on.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that he's gonna be traded.
Yeah.
If they do it, they would never do it before June 1st because then they get like a massive cap hit. But even still after, I'm not so sure. And one of the reasons is I don't know how much leverage Rodgers has because of his age. Number one, and number two, he's threatening to retire. Well, if you retire or we trade you, you're not on our team, so who cares? But if they were to trade him, I actually thought so. I don't think Denver's really an option because what quarterback are you getting in return?
Yeah.
If they thought what's his name, Jordan Love?
Yes.
They're back.
Yes.
Yeah. If they thought he was ready, they probably would have done this already. So they're going to want some kind of quarterback in return, and I don't want Drew Lock. He's the worst quarterback in the league statistically, and I don't want Teddy Bridgewater either. You mentioned Las Vegas. Man, I actually think David Carr is a better quarterback than people really want to think about. He was an MVP candidate a couple of years back before he snapped his leg in the last couple games of the season. He's super accurate, doesn't turn the ball over, and I agree 100%. I think David Carr fits beautifully. Like he's like plug and play right into that Green Bay, LaFleur, Shanahan style offense. I think he's a perfect fit. And boy, wouldn't it be great for what we do if Aaron Rodgers ends up in Las Vegas? Like, hello, that's just a weekly talking point, like guaranteed. The other team I thought about, again, sending him into the AFC, Tennessee is not the worst option if I'm Green Bay. And even if I'm Aaron Rodgers, like I'm looking at him and say, well, they got a strong running game. Like they're an established team, playoff team. So I'm not going, to the Jets or something like that. And if I was the Jets, I wouldn't be interested.
No.
Yeah. With Favre. But yet you're getting a guy like Tannehill back who, again, I think he's great on the run. He's kind of he's not Aaron Rodgers, of course, but you're not going to get Tannehill. You're going to get picks and maybe a player or something like that. So those are two teams that I thought about. I'm like, if I'm Green Bay, it's got to work for them. That they don't give a damn about if it works for Aaron Rodgers too much. Yeah. It's got to work for them. So
yeah, and I think that part of my thinking is, as you said, June 1st would be the date to trade him because but I'm thinking to myself, is Rodgers as spiteful as Favre was back in 2008? Would he retire just to get out of the contract, and then let's just say, I don't know, for some reason Detroit or Minnesota say, hey, come on over, let's just stick it to your old buddies in Green Bay. You play them twice a year. I mean, stranger things have happened, really.
Stranger things have happened, and yes, I do think Aaron Rodgers is as spiteful, if not more. I mean, he's even quirkier than Favre. And if you're another team thinking about getting him, you do have to take into consideration that in the last few years, Aaron Rodgers has had some injuries. He is going to be 38 years old this coming season. He's not a young guy. I fully recognize that. He had an MVP season, and this is why I find this so fascinating. One of the complaints is like you don't like that they drafted a quarterback. What the hell do you care? You're the best damn quarterback in the whole league. Like, what do you care if they? Who cares? Of all the people to complain, you're not it because they did this with you and Brett Favre. Like, and you sat. They're willing to let that kid sit until it's time. So they're not in a rush to replace you. This actual team has shown you that. The other thing is like, well, we don't have enough weapons, so Brett Favre needs more weapons. I mean, Aaron Rodgers needs more weapons. He threw for like 4,700 yards, 48 touchdowns last year. Like, who was he throwing to? Me? I don't think so. There's got to be somebody out there. You got one of the best running backs in the league. You got one of the best receivers in the league. A good tight end. You had another receiver, Lazard, who caught 5 or 6 touchdowns. Your running back had, I think, 8 or 9 touchdowns, like receiving 6 or 7 receiving touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
You don't throw for 4,600 yards and 48 touchdowns if you don't have some weapons. I just think that's kind of a false. Why? Because they didn't pick them in the first round. Who cares? Who cares if they're viable weapons? What difference does it make what round they were picked in?
He's making them all look like Pro Bowlers every single year. I mean, that's what he does.
I've said this all the time. When you have rookie quarterbacks, you need A and A+ receivers, and then when those rookie quarterbacks become full-time, they're getting that full-time salary, then you really should only have B receivers and those great quarterbacks like Drew Brees. You ever notice how like all the receivers who leave New Orleans and go somewhere else, they don't really do the same thing they were doing in New Orleans? Yep. It's because guys like Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, we see it with elite quarterbacks. These receivers go somewhere else and they're not quite as productive, because you had an all-pro quarterback throwing you the ball. So
I think what he does, I think he sees what's going on with Tom Brady down there in Tampa Bay, and the guy's, pushing 43, 44 years old, and he's still playing a high level. And he's thinking, and this is the thing I think a lot of quarterbacks are thinking. I mean, even Breeze took it to the point where he couldn't play anymore at 42. Right. And he's like, well, if Tom Brady can do this, I can do it too. And, they change their diet, they change their nutrition intake, and they just keep balling out, and they keep playing great football. And with the way the rules are changing, where even if you sneeze on the quarterback, you're going to get a flag. Yeah. Why not keep playing? Why not keep playing into your 40s? I think that's what he's probably thinking.
And I think physically, if you look at him, he runs around, throws on the run. He can still run for first downs. I think that's all fair. But if you want your situation to be like Tom Brady, then go ahead and make $12 million, because that's what Tom Brady does. I think he's only going to count 9. I think it's $9 million against the cap for Tampa Bay. How did Tampa Bay, the team who wins the Super Bowl, bring back all their starters from last year? Because their quarterback is making less than most of those guys. Yeah. Like Aaron Rodgers is going to be a $38 million hit. Go drop that down to 12, and then you'll be able to pick up some more weapons too. You'll get a bunch of them. So like you can use the Tom Brady argument, Aaron, but then you have to take the salary that Tom takes too.
Yeah.
That's part of it. That's part of the greatness of Tom Brady, his unselfishness.
Exactly. It's going to be very interesting to see how this thing plays out. We got the 4 weeks until June 1st when this thing is going to go one way or the other. So I guess we had Favre watch like 13 years ago. It's going to be Rodgers watch now.
It's incredible. It was the same team. It's just incredible.
Are we gonna have aerial shots of like the airport in every place, Minnesota and Las Vegas? We are here in Las Vegas. There's Aaron Rodgers' plane. It has landed. It's like, oh my God.
When you think about it too, when that went down with Favre, social media wasn't like a big thing. Now, you'll have a million cell phones following Aaron Rodgers everywhere he goes. He won't even be able to get on a plane.
Oh my goodness.
Crazy.
Anyway, Pete, this was an awesome segment.
Definitely.
Any final thoughts here before we go?
If you want to check out a pretty fun podcast, we're Bump and Run. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on the Anchor app. And the cool thing about the Anchor app is that it's the only app that I'm aware of that you can actually leave a voice message for us, and we love that kind of stuff. And if you do, there's a really good chance you can get on our show. So we love talking all sports. Of course, football dominates. My Jets bias always finds a way into the conversation. And I will say one more thing. You mentioned Sam Darnold. I just want to say I am now secondarily a de facto Carolina Panthers fan because I hope look, they've already done more for Sam Darnold down in Carolina than the Jets did in the 3 years that he was here. He's got more weapons. He's got a better offensive line. I'm rooting for the kid because I loved when the Jets picked him. I like the kid. I think he's super talented and tough. Got a great demeanor. He got screwed with the Jets, and I just hope, I really genuinely hope he ends up having a good career. Just don't beat the Jets.
Yeah, that they play each other this year. I mean, I'm thinking maybe let's have that game week 1 so we could find out.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Zach Wilson against Sam Darnold. Why not? We'll just go right at it.
Yeah. No doubt.
All right, Pete. Awesome job. Thanks a lot, man.
Mike, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, so that's our interview with Pete Collesano of the Bump and Run podcast, which you can hear on Spotify. As I said during the show, and I also said in other videos, it's going to be very important for Jet fans to be very, very patient with the development of this quarterback. It's really a team, again, that's hit the reset button, not just on the quarterback position, but the entire team as a unit, for that matter, with new head coach, new coaching staff, new quarterback, and a lot of new pieces. It's going to take time for this to come together. So I think expectations should be reasonably low, and we should just sit back and see how this thing plays out at this point in time, for that matter. Do I have concerns? Do I have about whether he is the right guy or not? Of course, we're always going to have those concerns. But right now, we're hearing a lot of good things coming out of camp. We'll see how things work out. As for the Giants, I thought they could have done a better job addressing offensive line. I think it's a big problem for them. They didn't do that much at all in the draft, although they did get a nice edge pass rusher. And then this Aaron Rodgers thing getting very, very, very weird. We'll see how that plays out as well when we hit June 1st. Now, keep in mind, Wednesday, we do have the NFL schedules coming out, so that day, on Wednesday, we'll come back on, and we'll take a look at those schedules, see what the big games are, specifically also for the Giants and the Jets as well. So keep it here to the Sports Talk Nation. Remember to like and subscribe right here, and also follow us on Twitter at OpenMicNJ, and on Facebook, facebook.com/OpenMicProgram. We'll talk to you next time.